Hello, Trumbull. This is the first episode of Ask the First Selectman. I'm Jim Lang, a member of the Trumbull Cable Advisory Committee and Trumbull's representative on the Charter Cable Advisory Board. With me today is our recently re-elected First Selectman, Timothy Herbst. Hello, Tim. Thank you for meeting with us today and helping us get this new program launched.
Jim, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
We're going to get right into the questions, okay? And we're going to start with questions having to do with the budget, okay? Because we think that a lot of people are probably quite interested in the budget. In this 2016-17 budget, what do you want subtracted from the budget and what newly included?
Well, that's an interesting question, Jim. You know, it's funny, when I came into office 6 years ago, people were discontent with tax increases that average 6%. And one of the things that I learned this year is taxpayers aren't happy with increases of 2%. So we really have to sharpen our pencils. But at the same time, in Trumbull, taxes and public education rank on the highest of priorities for our residents. So the challenge becomes, how can we make meaningful investments in public education while at the same time reducing costs where possible to keep the tax rate stable? So as I approach this budget, and as I indicated in my inaugural address for my fourth term, I am going to be looking on the town side to make a series of consolidations of certain departments, reductions in other departments, to really work hard to either stabilize or reduce the overall employee headcount for the town, but also at the same time look for savings with the biggest drivers in our budget. So for example, health insurance costs represent one of the largest drivers in our budget for both the town and the Board of Ed, second only to salaries. Our Director of Labor Relations, Jim Hazelkamp, is working on a plan right now with the Board of Ed to explore whether the town and the Board of Ed should go into the state health care plan, which we believe will represent a 7-figure savings. But at the same time, I want to make sure that if we do that, that our municipal employees understand that we're not going to compromise their benefits, that we want to give them a plan that's equal to or better than what they're receiving now, but we want to try to save the taxpayers money. I'm very encouraged by the grand list growth that has been reported on a preliminary basis by the tax assessor. Residents can see this grand list growth all over town. Madison Village, Long Hill Green, Route 111, the new Cancer Center on Park Avenue. We're seeing all of this business investment in different quadrants of our town. And that grand list growth is critical because it puts additional revenue into our economy and into our grand list, which in turn allows us to offset any increase in expenses that would otherwise raise the budget and presumably raise property taxes. So my goal in this budget is to do everything that I can on the town side to consolidate departments, positions, to improve and enhance efficiencies, to reduce our costs in big drivers like healthcare, but to also get the Board of Education to buy in, because the Board of Education represents 2/3 of the town's overall budget. So as I said in my inaugural address a few weeks back, when people say we need to spend smarter, that's where we need to start, because it represents 2/3 of the town's operating budget. So I think what the Board of Education needs to do with the town, working collaboratively, is to fully implement the recommendations of the Gibson Report, which was published about 2 years ago. So I think we need to look at non-education related areas in the budget where there might be redundancies. I've always said that if we both have Anthem as our healthcare provider, why do we need 2 separate healthcare brokers? Why do we need 2 separate maintenance departments? These are questions that need to be asked and answered. And these are areas where we should focus on efficiencies because they don't directly impact education or the delivery of instruction or the development of curriculum. So those are the areas that on a preliminary basis I'm going to really be focusing in on as I prepare my budget.
You've highlighted some areas where you think there could be some savings. What areas, if any, are there where you see us adding to the budget?
Well, I can tell you that we're going to make an additional investment in school resource officers. Chief Lombardo and I have been very clear that school resource officers are necessary. We are one of few communities in the region in Fairfield County that don't have them. I've made the commitment and the chief has made the commitment we're going to fund them. You know, if you look at what's going on in the world today, and you look at the violence in our society, sometimes perpetrated on schools, if you look at the drug problem we have in the state of Connecticut, in the country, especially with adolescents between the ages of 13 and 18, this is where school resource officers are critical. They become a conduit to helping teachers, administrators identify potential problems. They forge relationships with kids. And quite frankly, they help to rectify, remediate, or identify problems before they materialize. So I've committed to 3 school resource officers in this budget, 1 in each middle school and 1 here at Trumbull High School. I think when we talk about school safety, yes, we have great security guards and we have people stationed on the exterior of our buildings, but to have people in the interior makes the most sense too. So that is one area where we are going to make the investment.
Okay. Let's get to our next question. Do we need more money to fix damaged roads and old schools? Do you feel that the infrastructure needs are more or less pressing than other capital projects?
Infrastructure needs are more pressing. There is no question that when it came to road paving, and especially when it came to our school buildings, we kicked the can and we did not make the investments that were necessary on an annual basis to conduct the kind of preventative maintenance that is necessary. When you kick the can and when you don't make investments on an annual basis in your roads or your schools, pretty soon over time, you're looking at a 40, 50, 60, $70 million price tag for a renovation of one building like we had here at the high school. So with our capital plan, we're focused on making those investments on an annual basis, prioritizing them. Mark Deming, who's the facilities director, new facilities director for the Board of Ed, has done a tremendous job in developing a capital plan that makes investments every year in a priority list that is determined by him and John Marsilio, our Public Works Director, in certain school buildings, and likewise on the town side. John Marsilio identifies with his team the roads that need to take priority and the municipal facilities that need to take priority. When you don't do that, that's when eventually you're going to be staring down the barrel of a $40 or $50 million capital investment. And I think because of how we've been able to do this on an annual basis rather than taking on big ticket items at once, that's why our debt burden is lower this year than the year before. When you budget these things on an annual basis and when you do things in a reasonable manner and when you focus on needs rather than wants and really focus on making buildings energy efficient, which reduces operational costs and energy costs, that's where the town long-term will realize savings. And that's what we're doing with performance contracting in a lot of our school buildings, where we're using the energy savings we're realizing to implement the infrastructure improvements at no cost to the taxpayer.
Actually, it sounds like the public, our viewers, can actually contribute in a micro way to that. If they see a problem in their neighborhood, report it.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes that's how it pops up, by somebody reporting.
As I often tell people, we have 36,000 pairs of eyes in the town of Trumbull, and we want people, if you see something, say something.
Yeah. Okay, very good. What other long-term infrastructure costs does the town need to prepare for in its capital budget?
Well, clearly, the elementary schools are going to be a big area of focus over the next decade. The average age of your elementary schools is almost 60 years old. Jane Ryan, Booth Hill, Middlebrook in particular. So we're really going to have to put a plan in place for the elementary schools and middle schools over the next decade. Madison Middle School is our former high school. So we're really going to have to put a focus on that. We're also going to have to begin the process of planning for necessary infrastructure upgrades to our WPCA system. We're currently in the process of finalizing an agreement with the City of Bridgeport. The Ganem administration and my administration are working to finally develop the alternate contract that will succeed the contract negotiated in 1998. But as I've said, once that contract's negotiated, we're going to have to come up with a plan for the next 50 years. So if it's not going to be a regional plan with Bridgeport, we need to look at a regional plan with Stratford. We need to look at a regional plan with Fairfield or a bifurcated model with the two communities, where your WPCA infrastructure obviously has a tremendous impact not only on the cost to the taxpayer, but the stronger the infrastructure gives the municipality the better ability to attract quality economic development. So these are the kinds of priorities that are really going to be pressing in terms of planning for the next 10 and 20 years.
As our listeners plan, what kind of time frame should they be looking for with regard to water and sewerage?
Well, I will
give them a sense of time as best you can.
It's probably going to take a minimum of 2 to 3 years to come up with an alternate solution, and then you're going to have capital costs to tie in to neighboring municipalities. So it could take upwards of a decade to really come up with a fix for the problem.
Okay.
But the bigger challenge is finding that solution and pursuing it.
Right.
And right now there are several solutions or variables on the table where we have not really come up with a final plan.
Okay. We're paying off many capital projects such as Frenchtown Elementary, the preschool, the high school, and recent sewer improvements. Why would we even consider constructing a new non-essential community center given all that debt?
Well, I think I disagree with the premise of the question in the sense that it's being identified as non-essential. I view it as entirely essential, and anybody who's been to the existing senior center would recognize why it's essential. We have a population in the town of Trumbull. By 2019, 25% of Trumbull's population will be over the age of 65. 1/4 of our residents will be over the age of 65 within the next 4 years. That's only going to grow because it follows the demographic trends in the state of Connecticut. And we have spent a lot of money investing in our schools, as we should, but we also have a senior population that has been asked to fund our school system, rightfully fund our school system, just as people funded
Sure.
when their kids went to school. They've been called upon to make investments in the school system, and we need to make an investment in our senior population. I want seniors to be able to age in place here in Trumbull, to have an affordable community where they can plan their futures with confidence, but also have the kind of facility that they deserve. What I find unconscionable is that I meet hundreds of Trumbull seniors who tell me that they use the senior center in Monroe and Easton because the current senior center is not centrally located. It's in a building that was constructed in 1920. It is not conducive to the elderly and infirm. It's not really adequately handicap accessible. And quite frankly, it's not a venue that allows for us to provide for the types of programs that other communities provide to their seniors. So I take the position that it is essential. I wouldn't be pursuing it if I didn't think it was. I reduced debt levels by about $9 million in my first term, reducing the things that I deem to be non-essential. And if we were spending too much money, as the premise of that question suggested, then the debt service or the debt burden in the operating budget would not be less this year than the year before. So that's why it's important to kind of educate people and tell them the importance of doing these things. Sometimes we make investments in improvements to municipal buildings for no other reason than safety, making sure our employees and the public are safe. That's entirely essential, especially with what's going on in the world today. So I absolutely believe it's essential. I believe it's the right thing to do. And I believe that we're going to work hard to give our seniors the 21st century environment they absolutely deserve.
Okay, that may be. Let me share with you, I knew this was going to be coming up today, and I did a little homework. Mm-hmm. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. In fact, my homework ended when I visited Senior Center today. Mm-hmm. The Senior Center Commission, I also want to mention to our viewers that the Senior Center Commission is available, those meetings are available video on demand from Charter and Frontier and our video on demand. So you can see that. You can see that by going to the video on demand by going. We'll talk more about that later in the program. When we end it, we'll tell you how to get there. But I watched a couple of those meetings, and that's the basis for this. They said we had about 7,500 seniors in town. Does that seem right? There are 700 members of the senior center, half of which are from out of town. I mean, you talked about people from out of town. They do swap around apparently. So we've got 700, members. So that's 350. That's less than 1/10 of 1%. of our population that's currently being served
Sure.
by the senior center. So that's a part of that perspective, I think. When I visited the senior center today, two of the members came up. I mentioned we were going to be doing this program. They said, we don't understand why. What's the need for the senior center? Not that seniors aren't important, but what is it that's not being handled now? Why do we need to make a change?
You basically answered the question for me. Because when you have 700 people using a senior center, half of which don't even live in the town of Trumbull, and when you have 2,000 members in Shelton and 1,500 to 2,000 members in Monroe, which is a community smaller than Trumbull, and when you have more participation in a town like Easton, which is probably 1/3, or probably less than that, the size of Trumbull, it says an awful lot when Trumbull seniors aren't using our senior center. And you know why they're not using it, Jim? It's not centrally located. It's not an inviting environment. It's a converted school that was built in 1920. I'm sure when you walked through it, you saw the different levels, which make it very hard for access for seniors. I can tell you that the seniors that I speak to that go to Easton and Monroe that live in Trumbull, when I ask them, why don't you use it, our center, they state those reasons. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm embarrassed by the fact that Trumbull seniors don't want to use our senior center. And they'll tell you they don't want to use it for those reasons. I want Trumbull seniors who pay Trumbull taxes to use a Trumbull senior center. And if we're going to make investments in a senior center, or if we're going to make investments in our schools and investments in our kids, it's only logical that we make investments in our seniors as well, because we have an obligation at the local level in municipal government to represent all people and all constituencies. But I am not about to rely upon comments from a group of people, half of which don't even live in the town of Trumbull, and half of which really don't understand the demographics of where the town of Trumbull is going. And it's important. Trumbull seniors should be using a Trumbull Senior Center.
Okay, we'll move on. The senior commission does not represent the needs of the town's seniors, as we just pointed out from the statistics that I read. And by the way, the commission, I'm going to expand the question here. The Senior Center Commission suggested that a lot of seniors are working, they're employed, they're engaged in other activities in community service and so forth. And so the primary benefits of the senior center aren't important to a lot of them, okay? But back to the question, those meetings talked about the senior center, the senior commission, kitchen and their parties, and why aren't we making them accountable for addressing broader issues that affect our senior committee, the community rather?
Well, we are, because I have just appointed new commissioner to the senior commission. I've appointed Mary Moran to the Senior Citizen Commission, former mayor of Bridgeport, former member of the Trumbull Police Commission. And I think Mary will bring a very good perspective. I have said to the Senior Citizen Commission that we can't just be focused on what's going on at the center here and now. We need to be focused on how do we recruit more Trumbull seniors to participate? What are they looking for in terms of programming? Right now we have a facility that is exclusively focused on programming. Why aren't we looking at focusing on wellness, nutrition, recreational activities? A lot of seniors I talk to have said to me that they would love the opportunity to come to a facility where they can get on a treadmill or get on an elliptical machine or have more exercise classes. I think that's why you don't have the levels of participation you should be. So that's where I think the Senior Citizen Commission needs to be more focused. Yes, you worry about the building and the priorities of here and now, but you have to be forward-thinking and talk about what types of programs you're going to provide going forward to increase your participation. We talk about budgets, we talk about expenses, operating costs. Everyone seems to forget that when you're dealing with the Parks and Recreation Department or the Senior Center, there are revenue opportunities that allow us to offset expenses to our seniors or those who participate in our programs. So if we offer classes, yoga class, exercise class, and let's say there are out-of-town residents who are participating,
Sure.
just like our golf course. You have an out-of-town fee, and your residents are given priority. The same should hold true with our senior center.
I think it does.
It
I think
does.
the out-of-town residents do pay a higher, it's not a real high fee, but they pay a
No.
higher fee.
They do,
But I think the premise of the question here is that why doesn't that commission also focus on the needs of those who are not involved and may not really have a good reason to be involved in the senior center, because those needs of fellowship and friendship and so forth are being met in other ways.
Absolutely.
Which is a lot of them. Should the senior commission be expanded to look at the needs of that larger audience?
Absolutely, and that's why we need to look at
Okay.
wellness
That's what
programs
you're
for our
hoping Mary
seniors.
Moran will bring to it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm hoping too, and I'm going to propose a restructuring of the senior citizen department, social services. I'm going to propose a restructuring of that department that achieves a lot of what you're talking about.
Okay.
I want to focus on how do we allow seniors to age in place? How do we increase transportation opportunities for our seniors? We just had an audit that was done by the internal auditor showing that the current bus service that we are providing is really not meeting the needs of the entire senior citizen population in the town. In point of fact, what the audit revealed was that the current system is spending a lot of money servicing a small, very small population when the existing resources that we have can serve a greater population. I was up at Spring Meadows during the campaign, and I was shocked when seniors told me that they cannot take advantage of the bus service we provide. Those are things the Senior Commission needs to be working on. How do we expand transit opportunities for our seniors so they can go to doctor's appointments, they can go to the grocery store? How do we expand wellness programs? How do we make the community more affordable so they can age in place? These are the types of policy considerations that the Senior Commission needs to work on, and there needs to be a distinction. There needs to be a very clear distinction. The Senior Commission needs to set policy. The Senior Center Director and those that work on behalf of the commission need to implement that policy. You can't have crossover. So the Senior Commission needs to be the what, and the director needs to be the how.
Okay. In this 2016-17 budget, what kind of tax increases should the residents expect when the budget is completed?
Well, I'm hoping there is no tax increase. That's always my goal. I will tell you the only real reason we've had an average tax increase of 2% over the course of the last 6 years is because we had to invest an additional $33.5 million into our pension fund to fully fund the annual required contribution. That was a big driver in causing taxes to go up at all. And if we didn't have the grand list growth that we had, they probably would have gone up even higher. So my goal this year is very simple. We have fully funded our pensions at the annual required contribution. Our debt burden is less than the year before. As I mentioned earlier, rather than taking on big ticket items all at once, we have a capital plan in place where we are attacking these things on an annual basis. So debt service is less than the year before. We've fully funded our pensions, and we have basically reorganized and realigned a lot of our town departments in a way that have overall reduced the employee headcount. I mentioned to you what we're working on to try to reduce health insurance costs between the town and the Board of Education. If we can achieve that, and at the same time, we're going to realize at least this year, 2% growth in the grand list, which is the highest percentage increase we have realized probably in the last 15 to 20 years. That additional revenue, coupled with the savings on the health insurance front, if we can implement it successfully, and with the Board of Education, receiving a budget that addresses their priorities, but at the same time, make sure we fund and invest in the things that matter while identifying operational savings, I have every confidence that we can come in as close to zero as possible. If not, God willing, be able to reduce property taxes this year.
Okay. We won't hold you that too much.
I'm trying.
We
As soon as I
appreciate that.
leave you, I'm going back to Town Hall for a budget meeting.
Okay. Does the town rely too much on state grants?
No, I don't believe we do. I think that's why a city like Bridgeport is in a lot of budgetary trouble. They're looking at a $20 million budget deficit because I think they rely upon a lot of outside revenue, one-time revenue, including state grants. We really don't get that many state grants. But when we get them, we use them wisely. I believe in budgeting conservatively and responsibly, and I think because we don't have the reliance on a lot of state grants, that's why we're maintaining a healthy rainy day fund, $17 million and change. Our rainy day fund is at the 10% threshold that's recommended by the bond rating agencies. Pensions are fully funded, and we've been able to stabilize the tax rate. So if we rely too much on state grants, with what's going on in Hartford with the budget deficit and the mitigation package that's been proposed, where they're going to be cutting a lot of state aid and a lot of grants, if that were the case, we would be in a lot worse of a picture.
Different picture. Okay. All right. So, Tim, we're going to have to wrap it up. Run out of time. This has been fascinating and interesting, and I thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Participating in this.
That went by quick.
That went. It does go fast, doesn't it?
But I look forward to coming back, and I want to thank our Trumbull Community Television for allowing me the opportunity to speak directly to the people of Trumbull. It's very important, and I look forward to it.
And we want to thank our executive producer, Jonna Giroux, who's handled all the stuff that happens that you see, but you don't realize you're seeing it. She's done a great job with this. We thank her, plus the rest of the staff that is here filming and telling us what to say and so forth. Now, to watch this show, you can either watch it on television at Charter Channel 194 or on Frontier Channel 99. And on Frontier Channel 99, you need to scroll down because it doesn't just pop up, okay? You also can watch video on demand at any time you want by going to the website www.trumbleps.tv, and it's not .com or .net at the end, it's .tv. That confuses a lot of folks. You'll see that website. You can email questions to us at www.trumble.ps.tv, but also email to Trumbull TV at trumbleps.org. And you can mail them at the address you see on the screen there. We're in the high school building, and we look forward to your questions. We'll have another program in about a month, and we look forward to getting those questions and asking Tim those questions directly, and see what happens then. Thank you again for being here. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
And thank you folks for watching the program and being interested in your community. We hope that this is going to be a neat way for you to engage the First Selectman about your town.